guys. Welcome to Show Dog Prep School. This is Vicki Ronchette. I'm the owner of Show Dog Prep School. We are an online conformation school where we teach about conformation training, handling, and all things having to do with dog shows. And today we're doing an interview with my friend Laura Reeves. I'm really excited about this because Laura is an instructor with Show Dog Prep School, but also the owner of my favorite podcast, which is Pure Dog Talk. I never listened to podcasts before, actually. It was like, I just sort of didn't know how to find them and didn't
even know there was such a thing.
Yeah, I just was like, I hear about them, but I didn't do them. And then I don't know if it was because I got asked to be interviewed or because I just sort of found it somehow. It's like, oh my God, this is one that's all about show dogs. So it's really, really a great podcast. And then Laura also offered a compilation CD that I bought, which was like sort of a lot of
your dog.
Yeah, a lot of learning things, different podcasts that had all been put together. So I just wanted to start and have you tell us a little bit about you and your life in dogs. Like, I know the answer, but I want everybody else to know all about what you've done.
Well, dogs have been my life. Basically, since forever. I don't know, basically forever.
Your forever.
My forever.
Yeah.
My forever. We had little mutt dogs when I was a little kid growing up. My mom had a miniature poodle. My dad eventually got a German Shorthair Pointer. My father hunted, and so basically he decided that every dog on the property had to be a hunting dog. That was like the law. Like I wanted Nikita so bad. And he's like, nope, gotta be a hunting dog. So I was, and this might come as a bit of a shock to people, but I was a very, shall we say, I was kind of a difficult child, and my mother enrolled me in dog care 4-H when I was in 4th grade because I was shy and retiring and lacked people skills, her quote. And so I started dog care 4-H with my little Beagle Dachshund Cocker Spaniel Lhasa Apso poodle, Heinz 57. And dog 4-H is basically what turned me into who I am today. It gave me confidence. It gave me something that I could do that nobody else in my family could do. I could trim toenails, right? Like I could make my dog sit. I could do all these things. And so a couple of years later, my father is tired of hauling hay and building fence for my horses. And he says, if you'll get rid of these bleeping horses, I'll buy you any purebred dog you want. Little did he know that hauling hay and building fences was going to start to look really freaking good after a while. Because that was what sort of triggered this downward or upward spiral, depending on how you look at it, with my family. And I got my first dog. My first purebred dog was an English setter from Joyce Weichel in Northern California in 1980 ish, 80, 6th grade. And very shortly thereafter, my mom got her first Clumber Spaniel. My parents had field trial labs before that, and I grew up as a little kid in my little white lab coat, throwing maggoty ducks into scummy cow ponds for the dogs to retrieve. That was how I spent my weekends when I was 7. How about you?
So did your parents show dogs before then, or was it sort of you who got them into it?
But it was me that got them into it because they had the field trial dogs, but for show dogs, that was me. And it was because of 4-H and because and so they got the Clumbers and then became very, very, very active in Clumber Spaniels. My father was the field chairman for the National Club for, I don't know, from 1980 something till the day he died, pretty much. Not quite, but close. My mom was the past president. She was the Judges Education Coordinator, very, very active breeding program, even after they divorced, all the rest of it. And along the way, we kind of became the rescue location for all of the hunting dogs in Douglas County, Oregon. They all wound up at our house. Yay. And so one of those was a German Shorthair Pointer. And that was when I found my true love. And
this was after the English setter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. We still had the English setters, but we I was a little kid, and this is a great story for Show Dog Prep School. This is an absolute fact story. I had my very first English setter. Her name was Edsel.
Wait, something went a little off. Let's get that a sound thing.
You got a lot of crackling on the mic.
I do? Mm-hmm. There?
Nope, still there.
Try this, because we know it can be this.
Right. This was our problem the other day.
Is that better?
No.
No? You still hearing something?
Almost gone.
Is it this?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Look, gone. Easy peasy. Okay. I'm not wearing them.
Marginal. I see. I don't even have my headset and mic on, so I'm saying I'm using my computer audio. I don't even know what to do with that.
All right, there we go. Okay. We're good.
Yeah, that's all better. So Edsel was the English setter, Edwardian Secret Love, and I was 12 and studying Amelia Earhart in school, and I desperately wanted to name her Amy after Amelia Earhart. My father, who was not always the most charming human on earth, sometimes, decided he didn't like that, and he made me a bet that whoever could make her come to her name first got to name her. So he cheated and used food.
He did?
He did. Yes, he did. And so her name was Edsel, like the ugly car.
Right.
So God love her. She had come from a litter that had parvo early when parvo just started. She got kennel cough and then pneumonia and had to wear. I mean, she was just kind of a sad little creature, and I loved her dearly. And we went to our very first dog show in Corvallis at the Rabbit Barn. And the judge was Mrs. Janet Wilcox. And for anyone who has been showing dogs for a while, Janet Wilcox was very, very well known. John Wilcox's mom, Tammy Wilcox, John and Tammy Wilcox, John's mom, Janet. And Janet was known to be very specific and demanding. And I walked in with my English setter, who was a baby puppy, and her back coat was not pulled down properly, and she was not trimmed to, full-on show ring standards. I was 13, and it was my very first dog show and my very first show dog, and I left the ring sobbing.
Oh, no.
Literally sobbing. Like, devastated, because she was harsh to me about the lack of grooming on my dog. So I came back, clearly, but I did not come back with an English setter.
Yeah.
The Clumber Spaniels, the trimming on a Clumber Spaniel was more forgiving. The trimming on a wire hair pointer, particularly my first one that didn't have very much coat, was much more forgiving. And so that was the direction that we went. And I pretty much never looked back. I showed all of our dogs until I graduated from high school and went to college. Didn't show dogs much in college. Helped out at a few nationals and stuff for handler friends. And graduated from college. I was a newspaper reporter. Went through lots of things in my family and moved around a little bit, and wound up in Seattle as a marketing representative, and realized that a 9-to-5 desk job was just never really going to be, for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't. After 2 years, that became clearly evident. So I started a marketing PR company with $1,000 from a car accident that I didn't fix the car. And Clyde Communications was born. I worked on self-guided audio driving tours for one of my clients. I researched and scripted driving tours for national parks. And
wow.
Lewis and Clark, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, a variety of things like that while I was living up in Seattle. And during that time, I got my Akita finally. And my mom had continued. She had gotten another wire hair pointer. The wire hair was kind of a young, rowdy dog, and it was bouncing off her old Clumber. So she decided to send it out to me. And that became my foundation bitch. And my mom and I bred wire hairs together until she passed away in 2015. And yeah, I started showing her and my Akita and was back at dog shows. And it was not very long before I was making more money as a handler showing other people's dogs than I was doing the marketing and PR business. So eventually I just did that full time. I was a member of the Professional Handlers Association. I was a zone rep for that. And I retired in 2018, I guess. Is that right? Something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And now have regular status for my initial application of breeds as an AKC judge. Yeah. And we started Pure Dog Talk in 2016. And I had been kind of looking, I knew just kind of my own personal health issues that I was not going to be able to handle dogs forever. My dream of dying in the ring of a heart attack running around was just not going to
So, especially when you're showing a dog, especially when your breed that is your heart breed is when you have to really run with and
everything. Yeah. I was really hopeful when I finally had come across a Chihuahua client, and when that went sideways, I was like, I can't, I just physically, I couldn't do it anymore. And I'd been looking for a sort of a semi-retirement thing. I was really interested in education opportunities and all kinds of things. I had come up with a lot of ideas. I'd bounced a lot of ideas off of a lot of people. I'd, done a lot of rabble rousing. And somewhere along the way, in 2016, early part of 2016, I encountered Mary Albee, who is a elkhound breeder and a stunt coordinator in LA. And she was the one who had the idea of doing a podcast. Like literally, I mean, I probably knew that there was such a thing.
Yeah.
But I certainly never listened to one. And back in my days when I was working, doing the driving tours, my boss there had told me I had a terrible voice. And so he did all the narration and I did all of the scripting and the research and groundwork. And so when Mary asked me to host the podcast, I was like, oh no, I can't do that.
I feel the opposite of that.
I understand, but I'm telling you, that was my reaction. And when she finally flew up here, sat me down at my dining room table with a mic in front of me and said, go, and the first podcasts were released, the people who were friends of mine who had kind of helped encourage this to happen, the first thing they said was, oh my God, I just love your voice. And I'm like, So at any rate, Mary has since gone on to greener pastures, doing a lot more work in her chosen field. And I have taken the podcast on solo for the last couple of years. And, when you start a brand new business, quit your job and start a remodeling project all in the same year, you're a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
But I lived through that. And here we are in 2020. And the podcast just hit 400 episodes and 700,000 downloads. And that's pretty awesome.
Wow. I just want to take a second to thank everybody who's commented. We have Marianne, who's hi from Australia, and she's new to showing, but she has no obedience background. Dana's here. She's in my mentor program. We have Kelly, who says we're two of her favorite ladies. That's so kind.
Yeah.
And Anna Bola said it's a miracle you stayed in showing after that first.
It is actually a miracle. I have said this many times to my mentees, right, and people that I've tried to help with things, that if what happened to me happened to anyone today, they would never have come back. It was a different time. I mean, and I was that stubborn kid, right? Like that first wire hair I had hated men. She was basically a rescue, and she hated men. She would bite them. I mean, she just wouldn't even think about it. She just bit them. And I'm not kidding. No, she's like, you're a man. You have boy parts. You need to die. And, we found out the reason why, and she'd been somewhat abused. And so at 15, my greatest goal in life was to bring that dog to the point that I could show her to a male judge.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. She never finished. She was not very pretty. She didn't have very much hair, but she did get all of her single points. And I showed her a little bit in juniors. Mostly I showed a clumber in juniors, but that's what I was.
I want to read you a couple of comments because I put one on the screen and I don't know if you could see it. Chelsea Murray, who actually we were just talking about Chelsea. Chelsea, she's going to call you about the Canicross thing.
Yes, and definitely you are on my list. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Chelsea said, I love Pure Dog Talk. This is great. Dana Kelly said, love the Pure Dog Talk podcast. And Carolyn said, your podcast has and continues to be my inspiration for getting into showing and breeding.
Very cool.
Really cool. And I want to say that, anybody who's interested in breeding or learning about pedigrees should really check out Laura's Show Dog Prep School courses. And I'm pushing her. She's going to be doing hopefully a juniors one soon. Because I don't know anything about juniors and I want to offer that.
I really, really want to do it. It has been on my list for so long and I'm moving it to the top. I promise. I swear to God.
So I think that's great. I mean, so what I want to talk about just for a second, because I think that there's a lot of people who are using Facebook more than who are using some other, of the newer platforms and technology. So tell us what a podcast is and how it works for people who might be like, hey, I want to check that out, but I don't know how.
Right. The great thing about the podcast, the way it's set up, it is ridiculously easy. A podcast is like an old time radio show. Right? So you don't have to look at a screen while you're doing something. You can just listen. There's a blog post that goes up on the website with every episode of the podcast. So you can read through the notes and there's usually links in there to take you to other information. Okay. puredogtalk.com. Super simple. Every one of the 401 episodes is archived there, including the first couple hundred that are not available any longer on what they call the RSS feed. And typically what that is these dots and dashes that make it so what lives on the podcast player on my website is automatically shipped off into the ether and arrives at Spotify and iTunes and Apple Podcast and Google Play and what's the one? Alexa. No, what's
so they can always get it somewhere.
Anywhere. You can listen on your computer. You can listen on your phone. If you've got Bluetooth in your car, you can just plug it in, drive down the road. You're listening to podcasts. So a lot of people that are fans or listeners or what have you, they say they listen when they're driving to dog shows or driving to work or walking on the treadmill or grooming their dogs or what have you. They're timed at about 30 minutes. So it's a really good usable chunk of time, right? Like you drive half an hour to work or you walk on the treadmill for half an hour or whatever it is you do, you brush your dog. Long road trips, you just plug it in and go.
I make dog show leads. And so I like to have them to listen to when I'm braiding. Hannah says the podcast has been great for long drives when she was going to and from shows. And Callie said, I listen to the podcast all the time and have learned so much as a beginner. I really appreciate the CD with all the basic info. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
So
I love this. This is, you guys have to understand that dogs have been very good to me. They have given me a life that I have enjoyed. I certainly have not made $1 million and don't ever expect to make $1 million, but they've given me a good life. And everybody says, oh, judging is your way to give back. Well, maybe, but to me, this is a way to give back and education and information and knowledge in I say 20th century knowledge and a 21st century technology, right? Yeah. Because so many of the people that I've been able to interview, the judges and the handlers and all of the people who are involved in the sport, who are involved in various components of the sport. It's not just conformation. Right. I have field events like hunting events and herding and every other kind of thing. And I just keep adding more to it.
Right.
So,
And you and I have talked about this before, where it's like there is, a new generation coming up that are more comfortable with this technology that sometimes, even like I'm 51. I had to think about that for a second, but it's like, so I feel like pretty good with computers and pretty, but it's like, but I know people who are not that much older than me that are like, oh, how does all this work? It's like, it's too much, but there's a lot of people that, I mean, I'm doing Zoom classes, all kinds of Zoom private console. I mean, everything kind of is, especially now with the pandemic, it's sort of shifting. So I think it's like the conformation world, I think even more than other dog sports, has been very, very tightly wrapped up, and everything's been tradition. It's sort of, yeah, it's how it's always been done, but this is how we do it. But things are changing. And I think that this is really good, because I've talked about how, when I was first learning about dog shows, and I would say like my first litters and stuff were around the early mid 90s, that you went to dog shows and you were drug over to your mentor's RV, and you had your hands on puppies all the time. Puppies were brought to field trials. We had our hands. It wasn't just like, this is what you do. It was like, no, you need to come here and we're going to put 10 dogs on the table, and we're going to go over. So it's like, I feel like that's changed a lot.
Well, and I think, a lot of things have changed. And here I have said this, and somebody asked a question that's actually really kind of tied into this. Jenna's asking, what do you say? What resources do you recommend when someone asks, showing and titling dogs sounds hard and expensive? Is it? It's not hard. It can be expensive. But what is more important than either one of those things is what you prioritize. So if you want to just have a champion, it doesn't matter to you anything else, spend $1,000, send it with a handler, get it done in a weekend, right? Mm-hmm. If what is important to you is building that relationship and going through a journey with your own dog, it's going to cost you more money. I'm sorry, it flat is. But that's the, what I'm saying? Like, you make these decisions, and the beautiful part about dog shows is it gives you the flexibility to make those decisions. You don't have to do it a certain way.
No, you can do it. You can do it however. Like, I just like going to dog shows to be with my dog. Like, this is the sport that we do. I don't even want them to hurry up and get finished, because then what am I going to do for the next year while they're growing? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I like that.
That's what I say. It is very flexible. If you just want a champion, if you just want a grand champion, if you want to be the number one dog of all breeds in the entire world, there's opportunities for everyone to reach the goal they want. That's actually one of the early podcasts that I did. Set your goal, decide what it is, and then do it. And here's how, here's the steps for how you can do that goal. But the thing that I believe has changed fundamentally since the 80s, when I got started, fundamentally, is that today we have exhibitors. We do not have as many breeders.
Right.
People at the dog shows are not breeders. They're exhibitors. They bought their dog. They don't have any interest in breeding it. That's hard work. And the breeders don't go to dog shows as much because they're breeding dogs. Mm-hmm. And we have so many dog shows that if you're going to actually go to all of them, there's not enough time to breed dogs. Trust me, I tried. It doesn't work.
Laura, do you think that a lot of people don't breed partly because there seems to be, it's almost like breeder is a dirty word. Like they're just like, oh, I don't even know about that. Like, I'm not a breeder. I just have this dog.
Right. And so, and I think that it's really important to have that conversation, Vicki, because if it wasn't for a dirty word breeder, you wouldn't have your pet.
Exactly.
That you get to come to the dog show with.
Right.
And guess what? All of us who breed dogs are old. We are tired. We are broken. We are dismembered practically. The arthritis in my knees, my back, my hands, and my wrists is going to make it so this may well be the last litter I have coming up. I physically can't do the work anymore. We desperately, desperately need more dog breeders. Good breeders, preferably, but breeders, period.
Right.
We need people to produce well-bred, conscientiously bred dogs, so that the next person down the line can have a well-bred dog, so that we can preserve the history, the living history that our dogs represent for the future. The German wire-haired pointer represents a very specific point in time.
Yeah.
Right up there.
I can see it.
The average guy, right? The regular dude could have his own hunting dog instead of the monarchs only being able to have hunting dogs. And they could afford to feed a dog, which they couldn't do before that.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're able to develop a breed for their own, but they can't afford to have, like the royalty do, a spaniel that flushes and a retriever that retrieves and a pointer that points and a hound that does rabbits and whatever. They can barely afford to feed that one dog.
So he better do it all? Is that what you're telling me?
That's exactly right. And so the German wire-haired pointer was developed as the Uber dog, the dog that did everything. They already had short hairs. They had a Griffon type of dog. They had a poodle pointer. They had a lot of other breeds that went into developing the wire-haired pointer. But the Germans wanted this dog who could literally do everything, because they could only, these were just like average guys. This is part of the Industrial Revolution and the changing of the world order. These dogs represent the history that is attached to that. And the foresters that wanted a dog who would dispatch feral cats because that's what killed the baby birds that was going to be their dinner in 6 months. And a dog that could blood trail a wounded deer, and a dog that would retrieve on land and in water, and a dog that would guard hearth and home so that they could go out and do their work and their family would be safe. And so every single one of the 200 some odd breeds represents a snapshot in time.
Right.
And if we don't preserve those breeds, that snapshot in time fades away.
Yeah, I think people forget about also the fact that, if no one's breeding, there's not just going to be like this place you can go to get them. Like somebody has to be doing this. I spent many, many years in rescue. You have too. You've said that you guys did tons of that. I have dogs still in my home that are rescues and shelter dogs, but you're not going to find that predictability, that heritage, that purpose, that reason, where you're going to have a really good chance of getting what you think you're getting if you get that dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Including all of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into making that particular dog, the thousands of dollars in health testing and research that's gone into making that particular dog.
Yeah.
Purebred dogs are the single most health tested animal colony anywhere. I mean, people, breeders, the dirty word breeders, invest thousands and thousands and millions of dollars. The AKC Canine Health Foundation, millions of dollars into improving the well-being and the welfare and the health of all dogs, including the shelter rescue.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, my first 4-H dog was a mutt. Beagle Dachshund Cocker Spaniel Lhasa Apso Poodle. He wasn't a fancy designer dog. He was a mutt.
Yeah.
He was born under my uncle's bed. Okay? I mean, he was legitimately all of that. He was a great dog. He could sit
But he got you into dogs, right?
Exactly. And so I have zero problem with people adopting an animal from a shelter and doing those things. But eventually you're going to want a dog that isn't difficult to train, that didn't come with health and or temperament and or behavior problems because it was so poorly bred and dumped and not raised and missed out on those critical first 16 weeks.
That's what I was just going to say, that part.
Training, healthy diet, all of those things. Okay. So that dog at the animal shelter started out unbelievably disadvantaged.
Right.
And you can luck into having a good animal. Good. Yay. That's a wonderful thing. And I applaud the people who take the time to do that. But if you want a dog that has had the very best start it can possibly get, that's not where you're going to go.
Right. Tara said, I love Pure Dog Talk. I've learned so much from it. I'm in Canada and started conformation shows for a couple of years and just had my first litter to raise my own show dog. Thank you, Laura.
Good job, Sarah.
Really nice comments that you're both fantastic sources of knowledge and inspiration. Thanks for all you do. And, just some people sort of, saying, yeah, ain't that the truth and word. So I want to talk about some of the different topics that you've had. You talked a little bit about it, but like just you've had 400 episodes now, right? And it's not all show dog stuff. I mean, I've heard some really good. My friend Laura Joseph was on there talking behavior. I've heard about things about like really heavy, deep scientific stuff about dogs that I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. I'm going to have to listen to that one. So I'm curious, like just some of the other topics you've done.
Literally, I tell people there's a keyword search function on the website, right? And from soup to nuts, A to Z, there's a literally Sholo exquently, okay? A to X. It kind of falls into topics, right? So we do breeds and breeders. So there's a number of episodes, what I think of as love the breeds episodes, that are really basic, really general information about specific breeds. I try to get panel discussions or really knowledgeable people from within the community to talk about the breeds. Tibetan Spaniels, Laotian, tons of those, Clumber Spaniels, wire hair pointers, short hair pointers, all of any national I could get to. I grabbed a bunch of people and put them together. Shetland sheepdogs, Harriers, for God's sake. I mean, seriously fun stuff. I do a lot of emphasis on rare breeds. Somebody up above was saying they love Rare Breed Month. I love Rare Breed Month. It's always fun. The people in their breeds are so incredibly passionate. And then there's kind of what I think of as the we originally called it Wisdom Wednesday, sort of the Legends days, right? So I just yesterday, what day is this? Yes, yesterday, I had Jimmy Moses on the phone. Oh, okay. I have the coolest job you've ever had. I love it because I get to talk to so many amazing people. I mean, like truly amazing people, and people who are long in the sport and long in dogs and have tremendous passion. Ed Biven, Steve Gladstone. I was the last person that interviewed him before he passed away.
Wow.
Dr. Bob and Polly Smith. I interviewed him before he passed away. Saving that knowledge that's disappearing is really, 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 really part of what I want to do, and trying to talk to those people. And then there are trainings, lots of training topics. We've done some. My friend Kristen Stansteed at Big Miss Dog Training, we've done some of the behavior people that you sent me, good recommendations. I've tried to cover most of the events. I haven't gotten to all of them, clearly, but I've tried to cover a lot of them. Earth Dog and Dachshund Field Trials and Barn Hunt and Obedience and Rally and all of that. I've got some more Canicross. Chelsea, you're on my list. Just all kinds of fun
Hannah says I keep having my eyes out for a Pharaoh Hound episode, and I'm like, oh yeah, I keep meaning to talk to Laura about that.
No, Hannah's already told me she wants a Pharaoh Hound. It's on the list, Hannah. I swear to God. I actually, one of my best in shows was on a Pharaoh Hound, so I do have a lot of deep fondness and appreciation for the breed. So
nice.
There you go. Let's see, what else do we have? We do a lot of sciencey stuff, DNA stuff. Embark is one of the sponsors of the show. And I also want to mention, I see Hannah Pemberton makes me think of it. We have an opportunity for people to support Pure Dog Talk called being a patron. You can sign up to be a patron, like $5 a month. I mean, it's essentially a crowdfunding kind of concept. I call it the NPR of dogdom. And so, I just want to get that plug in there. But one of the things that we have started for the patrons group is that twice a month, now. We've changed it to twice a month. We have what we call Pure Dog Talk After Dark. And we sit around and talk about some particular education topic and have adult beverages and, hang out.
Yeah.
It really has become, over the course of the last 6 months that I started doing this, really become a very much a group, right? Like a support group, literally our own personal, particularly through the pandemic, our own personal dog show support group. But that's just something for people to consider, another opportunity.
Yeah. And we have on the, I have it scrolling puredogtalk.com. Can they find that from the website? Can they find the patrons group from there, or do they have to go right into Facebook?
No, so that's where you sign up to become a patron. There's a link that says be my patron on Podbean, or get in the ring, or I don't know what it says, but it's right up at the top.
Okay.
And if they do that, I get a notification that they've joined, and then the patrons group is on Facebook. It's a private group on Facebook. You can only be in it if you are a paying patron. And it's just that it's been really great, because when I took this over from Mary, I suddenly had a pretty significant chunk of bills to pay out of my own pocket and no funds with which to do it.
I remember we talked a lot about that when it was all.
It was a little terrifying. And that patrons group is what made it so Pure Dog Talk could still be here.
Yeah.
And truly, if it was not for that, I would not have been able to continue to do it. And I say it every time, I am incredibly grateful, because those people, that money is absolutely its own box, and it goes into paying all of the overhead. So like the sound design guy and the websites and all the Skype and all the rest of this technology stuff, right? It does, none of it comes to me. Mm-hmm. It all goes to the business, to paying overhead. And then the sponsorship money is what makes it so I can actually pay my bills.
Yeah.
And so equally grateful to the sponsors. And so Trupanion, the insurance company, medical insurance for your pets, and Embark. And Embark has been really, really amazing as a partner, because it gives us, as listeners, it gives my audience an access, truly amazing access to fabulous scientists. We just did an interview with one of the founders of Embark about the FOXI3 gene, I think is what it's called, for hairlessness. And talking about, right. And so you pair that with, the next week is an interview with Sholo breeders, right? So it's that kind of a thing that really makes a good synergy. Mm-hmm. I think for people that are interested in that. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Stephanie.
Such nice comments. I encourage everybody to sign up for the patrons group, because it's hard to get, generate income from, I think, from a podcast, right? It all comes from sponsorships, right? And that's a lot of work.
Everybody sets it up differently. Some people put it behind a paywall and make it a subscription. Marion is one of the things Mary and I thought about. My entire purpose for Pure Dog Talk, my entire intention, my entire goal, my entire raison d'etre was to get knowledge and information to people who needed it. Yeah. It was not to make money. The ability to make money has become a byproduct, and thank you, baby Jesus, for that. But that was not why I did it. And there's a real big difference. My goal is to give people information. And to give it to
we want you to be able to still do that.
Well, yes, and that's why we have a patrons group. But I don't want to charge them for it. You understand what I'm saying? So, and because I am grateful, I provide extra stuff to the people who are willing to kick in a few bucks to help keep it alive.
Yeah.
So, that has come. Actually, it was a recommendation from Trupanion. My kind of friend, the person that I work with at Trupanion, said, you really need to do. And she's a marketing genius. And I said, okay, fine. And I did it. And she's a marketing genius. And so I really love the crowdsourced knowledge I've gotten, right? Like everyone has helped me with this. Tons of people have helped me with this. You've helped me with this. Bill McFadden has helped me with this. Valerie Nunes has helped me with this. Everyone has, Luke Bagenstos is a handler in the Northwest, one of the very first patrons. He's like, I'm totally in supporting this. These are the kind of things that I love about our tribe, which is what I refer to it as, because it's how it feels to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because in our tribe, we really do support one another, help one another, encourage one another, lift one another up rather than tear one another down.
Right.
And that is the community I want to build and have really enjoyed creating for the listeners.
I think you've done that. I think you have done that. And what I want to share my favorite episode.
Okay.
And then I want you to share. Well, I don't even know how I stumbled upon it. But it was funny because I found it shortly after he had DQ. he actually called for the wicket, but then let me get myself out of the ring before the wicket because the wicket was taking so long. But it was the Michael Canalizo episode. I mean, it was like listening to him talk about those early Afghan hounds. Like I was moved to tears more than once because you go in there and you see these people and you're like,
about driving by the cemetery and all the dogs, all the black dogs, and the sunlight comes in and hits the one. I'm like, Michael, who comes up with this stuff?
Oh my God. But it really like, because sometimes you see these judges, and I think sometimes our perception of the judges is like, oh, like
they hatched out
they're fancy, or that they don't, either it's just like they're untouchable. Either they're whatever they are, they're old and they don't really even like this anymore, or they're like this big, scary judge and they're very famous, so I have to be careful. There's all these different perceptions, right? But when you listen to these people talk, you realize, I messaged him after that, listening to that, and I said, hey, I was in your ring, and I hope I didn't mean to challenge you, and I didn't mean to be disrespectful. He's like, no, you were fine. And I'm like, but what I'm really writing is because you need to write a book. Like, you're a phenomenal storyteller. I would listen to 5 hours of that, of him talk about just, growing up and making himself be a part of dogs and that whole thing. So that was like, and I look for those kinds of those old time breeder ones.
Right. And that's, I think for me, I can't pick a favorite. It's like choosing a favorite child. I mean, come on. But my favorite genre, if you will.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah. Is those stories, because, and this is something that I, again, was sort of an idea that I had put together before Pure Dog Talk even existed. And it is the idea of panel discussions at dog shows.
Yeah.
Where we bring the judges and we've included a number of podcasts from those. And I introduce each of those podcast or those panel discussions in a similar way. And it is that as exhibitors, we have a tendency to think that these judges were hatched from eggs.
Dragon eggs.
Dragon eggs. And it's not true. And I think we could completely burn the dog show judges report card to the ground, and I would be completely fine with that if people would just go listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
The person's already, there's that person talking in first person, their own thoughts and their own, what's important to them. And you don't need to ask somebody who probably doesn't know any better than you do. You need to go to the source. And that's, for me, what that is about.
I also feel like episodes like the one I was talking about, Michael Canalizo, and there have been others. That's the one that I always think about. I feel like that's the type of thing that could inspire people to breed. When they hear somebody talking about something all these years later of where they started and how it's changed. I mean, I just think that it makes you excited and, like inspired about this whole thing.
I agree. And I think the other thing that I think is it's something about the media. It's something about whatever it is. I I enjoy talking to these people, but when you sit and listen to Ed Biven tell you his life story, and the reason he is who he is because his parents were not very touchy-feely people. And when you listen to Doug Johnson talk about how he came to where he is and some of the things that he values, and you hear from these people who are literally legends talking about their beginnings and their introductions, and their Dana Klein's story is another one that's really beautiful. And you really come to understand them as people. And I will tell you another story. Here's a story for you. Ed actually was someone who Mr. Biven was someone I was like just terrified of as a grown-up adult person. He intimidated me. He pretty much made me cry as a grown-up adult person when I picked up a pug in his ring, which y'all should know, don't ever do that. And it was just frustrating because I just couldn't get past this. And I did that interview with him, and everything just whoosh, totally made sense. And I have never been intimidated in his ring again.
Wow.
Because I understood where he was coming from.
Right.
And that he is not being, grumpy old man. He really cares so much about what he's doing that he was concentrating so hard that frilly no nonsense stuff, he just doesn't have time for it.
Yeah.
And I just was, that kind of thing really helps change your perspective. Right. And I think that changing our perspective is something lots of people in the sport could do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. I think that the new homework for my mentees is going to be to see if there's an interview on their judges on Pure Dog Talk and go listen, because I really do feel you get to know them, and then you get to feel.
All you have to do is put in a keyword search. If they've been interviewed, it'll show up on their name.
Is Jim Reynolds? Is that okay? So I think his was another one I loved, and he said, I remember in his interview he said something like, for these couple minutes, this dog is mine. It's my dog. I get to look him in the eyes, and I get to know him. And I almost started crying because it's like, that's all I want is for someone to care about my dog for the $35 I paid for you to look, but if, oh my God, if they feel any sort of warmth and love towards them, then it's like worth the wait to me,
But that's the point. And you can't, I've been at this long enough. Most of these people I know personally at some level, right? Yeah. Like not all of them, but a lot of them. And so it's easier for me to approach them with a question. But remember, we just talked earlier about the dog show is populated primarily at this point by exhibitors, people who don't have the background, who don't have 40 years at this.
Right.
And as new people come in, it's like we're speaking a foreign language. It's like the entire thing is just this random weirdness that makes perfect sense to us who are in the tribe.
Right.
If you're not in the tribe, it's a little weird, right?
Right.
So this is like translation from old school to new school.
Right.
And helping people understand that, no, I'm not winning because I'm a handler and I've known the guy for 40 years. I'm winning because I know what he wants and I brought it to him.
Right. And you know what to do.
Yes.
I think that's a huge thing. And it's something I talk to my students all the time. It's like, oh, but it's so political. And it's like, well, but also I've seen dogs that were like, ew. And then the next day it's on a handler and it's like, hey, he wasn't here yesterday, but he was. Dog. Yeah, it was the same dog, but and it's because they, it's not hard. This is what they do. This is that they've been doing it for many, many years and they don't even think about it. It just happens so naturally.
Exactly. And I think that is my biggest, if I have a pet peeve, if you will, it's that. It's people not understanding that as a judge, I see your dog for perhaps 2 minutes. Perhaps. I haven't stood there and watched it outside the ring, slumping and cowhocked and whatever you think it's doing. I see this. So as a handler, you have the opportunity to show me this or not.
Yeah.
And you can't yell at me for not seeing what you saw while you stared and bitched about somebody else's dog for 20 minutes outside the ring, because all I saw was this and they didn't show me that part.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes
And
sense.
so it's really, 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 really important to come to that understanding and to know what you have, what you do not have, how to present the best of what you've got, how to not
Yep.
present the worst of what you've got,
Yep.
and how to learn that what the judge is seeing. So when I know what to bring a judge, it means I've shown them over the course of 25 years, probably 200 dogs minimum, of all different breeds,
Mm-hmm.
in all different parts of the country, right? I didn't just walk in their ring once with a poorly trained puppy and get beat and get mad.
Right.
Right. And I didn't only ever show them wire-haired pointers. I showed them everything from wire-haired pointers to chihuahuas,
Yeah.
to Irish wolfhounds, to Akitas in the same day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And you can, if you are paying attention, get a sense of what the judge is looking at or for if you watch them enough.
Yeah.
And or if you listen to Pure Dog Talk.
Yeah. And there you have it.
And there you have it.
There you have it. Listen to Pure Dog Talk, you guys. And
Excellent.
please, let's everybody consider signing up for the patron program, because I think it's a huge amount of information for very nominal cost. So thanks for being here, Laura. We're all so grateful for you. You're so loved in the dog world. And anytime I say, well, Pure Dog Talk, people are like, I love Pure Dog Talk. So it's great, and everybody knows it's great. And so I hope everybody, if you haven't checked it out, please check it out. We've had her website crawling, so you can find all the information on there. Thank you, Laura, so much for being here.
Thank you,
Thanks
Vicki.
everybody for
and
watching.
Don't forget, we've got classes too. How about prep school classes?
Yep. Yes, we do.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.